Welcome to the Be Happy Now show. Flex your soul connection muscle and be your inner guide to fulfillment and purpose. I'm Claudia-Sam. If you know that you're here for a bigger reason, this is the place to be. Together, we ditch the self-care guilt and quit the go with less fear and more trust. Tune in to living life in alignment with your full potential. The Be Happy Now show starts now. Hi, I'm so glad you're back. This episode is a recording that was edited from the talk I gave on the Women Inspiring Women conference that happened in March of 2023. And the conversation was about getting out of the head and accessing the heart. And this is a really deep dive to the point that we actually had a conversation with the participants. And some of the women who were present were sharing what they were experiencing and how they were seeing the conversation that we were having, how they were going through being a human who gets triggered, who has life happen at them. And we discussed how it can often be difficult and how sometimes we will quote unquote say, this is hard. It's hard to stay in a high vibe. It's hard to stay consistent. And so I talk about that as we go, and I share two personal stories to help you kind of put in context, okay, how can I respond? What can be my way of being? What kind of energy can I embody when it feels like life is happening to me and there's no way out? So you'll get to hear me share those stories. And one of the women, because you won't hear her, so I'm just going to do a little bit of a review of what she shared. She said that she was having a conversation with one of her family members and how the conversation kind of ended with okay, fine, like that ending of a conversation that just feels like both people have their arms crossed and there's no solution. Both people just want to stay angry. That's kind of how the conversation ended for her. And she was sharing how it's upsetting and it's sad, and she doesn't want to stay in that energy. And she wants to be able to choose higher vibe thoughts and higher frequency of an energy. And so she made an empowered decision that she got to make a shift. And there were beautiful shares also about how actually being in the head can often mean that we are just blocking the voice of the intuition. And so we're talking about that as well. This is a longer episode, although we did edit it so that you could just get the nuggets of, getting straight to the point. And in the show notes, you will also get the link to the Be Happy Now show crew if you've not yet joined, because that's where you get to receive right away the podcast episode that best supports you, or that would best support you depending on where you're at right now. And also, if ever you are curious about getting back on track and you want to move your habits forward in a positive direction, then all you have to do to just get a back on track activation call with me and get access to my 10 best resources to get back on track, whether it's about your spiritual practice, about spiraling up your thoughts to, defaulting to delight, or being in a high vibe, or choosing yourself consistently, not letting what happens to you be hard. If you want to make that a consistent practice and choose a high frequency, choose joy, choose happiness, choose with awareness, then go to claudiasamsoulcoaching.com/back on track bundle. And you will be able to purchase the Back on Track bundle. Let me just make sure that is the website that you get to. Back on Track bundle. Yeah. So when you go to claudiasamsoulcoaching.com/back on track bundle, you'll get access to that. Get your pen and paper. There's a lot of information in this podcast. This is a gift from me to you so that you can be, or it can feel as if you were part of the Women Inspiring Women conversation that we had. And it's an opportunity for you to look at, okay, how can I get out of the head and access the heart? And of course, if you want a deeper dive, then reach out to me. I'm happy to connect with you. Okay, enjoy. I want to ask you a question. Two questions, many questions. When was the last time you overthought? I guess perhaps before Yoga Nidra, but when was the last time you went over something you were thinking about, or something that had happened, or something that you were looking forward or not that was going to happen in the future? And if you can recall that time when maybe the body was starting to feel hotter, and like the heart was starting to pump faster, and the thoughts were starting to spin up, and the energy was starting to rise, even maybe the frowning, and maybe you were biting your nails, or your tongue, or your lips. Does anyone have that kind of overthinking physical response? I often will get that, or at least before now, my overthinking overwhelm was full speed. Tell me, I have another question for you. How many of you have, or still get sometimes triggered by other people around you, triggered by what other people say? Or yes, I love the emoji. Thank you. And maybe that trigger is getting you to a place where you just want to respond like boom, like in an anger, or I'm going to convince you, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to make a point, I'm going to defend myself. And you could probably see like the energy of like me coming towards the screen, and the fist, like the energy. We're human, it happens. Was it ever beneficial for you to respond like this, and or to entertain the ongoing thoughts in your mind? Probably not beneficial, and yet we do it. A lot of us do it still. So in this talk today, we're going to explore how to get out of the head and access the heart. And there's going to be two parts to what we'll do. I'm going to share some examples of how that shows up in my life, how it shows up for my clients. I'm going to share one part will be an energy vibratory level. So we'll really get into the non-tangible aspect of being triggered and using our emotions to respond and or entertain these overthinking thoughts that has us take actions and make decisions from a place of what makes sense, instead of from a place of I feel so passionate about that, this feels so good. And the second part is that we're going to look at, okay, well, what does it actually look like to be in the head versus the heart? And I'm going to give you language so that you can play. And you get to take your journal and your pen so you can write some notes as well. And if at any point you have any questions, just mute yourself or raise your hand like you've been doing all day. I'm Claudia-Sam. As Gigado Megan Quay introduced, I'm your soul connection coach. And here's a story that happened today. Oh, I wanted to share this note, and it's in the car. So I'm going to explain it to you. Paint the picture for you. Last night, I slept in an Airbnb, super beautiful home next to Washington, D.C., and it was so cozy. And we arrived, we were so we were welcomed in this nook, and it felt just so inviting. And we parked on the street. We asked, can we park on the street? Yes, no problem. And this morning when we woke up, mind you, I was in Florida yesterday. So when I woke up in flip-flops to the colder weather, I was like, ooh. And I got to the car, sat in the car, and there was a note in the windshield. The note said, Airbnb is, there was a harsher word that I can't remember. Airbnb is not allowed here. Do not come back. Big letters, underlined, do not come back. And the first response that I had was I laughed. And then I closed my eyes, put my hand on my heart, and I blessed this person, imagining that I was shining light on that person not from like just my light, but from like divine, universal, positive energy source energy. And I blessed that person that stayed in this attack mode. At least that's how I perceived it. And the third thing I did was that I didn't give it more power. I decided to share it with you today. And I actually wanted to throw out the note, and I could have, because I didn't even have here to show it to you. I didn't give it more power in the sense of, as soon as that happened, that I laughed, that I blessed the person in the paper, I was like, ooh, look at the beautiful purple flowers. Moving on. That is me being in the heart energy. And we're going to explore that together. Okay. We're going to look at how that might show up for you in your life. So that's an example of how I showed up in my heart, in my soul alignment. And here's how I could have entertained this and how this could have gone if I had stayed in the head. Instead of doing the 3 things I shared with you, I could have totally got into the boxing ring with that person's energy in a fighting mode of, who do they think they are? They're attacking us. We don't even know them. I could have entertained that, and that would have brought up anger. The same kind of energy as I was explaining before, of like the overwhelm, the overthinking, the negative what if scenarios, a little bit like what Tina was sharing earlier, and how that can create that heat in the body. Well, I could have self-generated that for myself, but I chose to not. The second way I could have stayed in my head and contributed to the same energy as the note was, well, I could have took it fully personal and made it now about me. And then closing my vision into this funnel vision of, I did something wrong. And then making it about me, about the I am statements we were talking about with Tina. Like maybe I could have changed the I am in such joy to I did something wrong. I am not good enough. I could have made it way worse. And the third thing was I could have gone on and on about it and talked to my boyfriend about it. And just, it could have taken my whole day, and it didn't. That could have been me being in the head. So that being in the head energy kind of equals unhappiness and low vibe, versus what I decided to do and chose to do was to be in joy and beauty. I would love for you to look at the energy frequency scale and tune into, when was the last time you were there? Okay. So you can find this. You Google energy frequency scale. This is pretty much from Abraham Hicks. So if you Google in Abraham Hicks, the energy frequency scale, you will get this. And this is part of our first introduction to getting out of the head and into the heart. Now, raise your hand if this is completely a different language to you and you're like, what is she saying? Okay, great. Half. Fine, perfect. It's great because we get to introduce, we get to play. And if you've known this, if you are familiar with this, then let's just dive deeper. When was the last time you found yourself perhaps in the fear or anger, which would, be close to the guilt? And these numbers are based on the frequency. For example, the sound travels in hertz. These numbers are in the frequency of sound, the frequency of hertz, because when sound moves, it creates a vibration. And that's the level of vibration that we want to reach. The joy, the peace, the enlightenment. You could use just being fully you could be that 700 hertz and more. And when you are closer to the shame, the guilt, the grief, the fear, you are under the 100 hertz. That means that you might not be vibrating at the level of what your goal wants for you, of where your goal lives. And when I talk about the heart versus the head in the tune-in method, it's also about recognizing the frequency, the energy layer of what the thoughts entertain, of what the thoughts entertain, of what the decisions entertain. Because when we look at this energy frequency scale and we recognize, hey, I've been kind of living in this contracted energy. How can creation or joy or creativity or abundance or synergy in our relationships even come in if we are closed? If we are living from a head point of view versus an expansion heart point of view. And so let's dive deeper into that so that we can just start recognizing a little bit more the habits, and so that we can from an empowered awareness, make decisions to rise up that ladder. Okay. So this is where we're going into kind of our part 2, and I'm going to share more examples so that you can recognize, you can kind of know, okay, this is what she means. I'm going to give you a little introduction of why we're even talking about the head and the heart. Okay, the 5 layers of the self. When I talk about, let's say, overwhelm, you're in overwhelm. Overwhelm happens in the layers of the body, the mind, and the emotions. And here's why. Imagine that the 5 layers of the self are like pancakes. They're stacked one on top of the other. Okay. And I don't know about you, but I love to have pancakes with syrup. So when I pour the syrup on top of the pancakes and I go there and I need to first cut through the first layer to then get to the juiciest part of the pancakes at the bottom. When we are in the head, it's hard to access the 5th juicy layer of who we really are, so that we can access that confidence, so that we cannot respond with anger and with fine energy. And so that we can really consistently be in alignment with what feels expansive for us. So here, the first layer of the big S self is the body. So the body being the one who eats, the one that you touch, the one that you see, the one that you see through as a human. The second layer is the mind, the thoughts, the fears are entertained there. The what if negative scenarios, this is what happened and this is what she said and this is what he said and this is what they said kind of entertaining of the mental story lies in the second layer. The third layer of the self is the emotions. I'm feeling so judged. I'm feeling so pushed aside. I'm feeling not heard. I'm feeling unimportant. When we are, it's often hard to access the real feeling when we are stuck at the body layer or when we're stuck in the mind layer. So we get to cut through each of them. And today we're going fast track through them. So thank you for being here. The fourth layer is the energy. I wrote psychic here, but you could also use the word intuition, boundaries. That's when, once you've noticed, okay, this is how my body's feeling when I'm overwhelmed. The heart is racing. I feel hot. I feel like I'm about to get sick because I'm about to say no, but I'm about to say yes, and I really want to say no, and my body's responding to something. That's the physical layer. Once you recognize how your body's sensing when you're in anger, for example, in those conversations where you feel uncomfortable, you feel it physically. Then you get to, again, access the thoughts, to access the emotions. Then you're able to hear your intuition. And that's where the line between the head and the heart live. That's the conversation we're having here. So the first 3 layers, body, mind, and emotions, are what I call the head. This is the second part of our talk, the doing energy, the go, the being attached to who we are as a body. And this can be a deeper conversation as a spiritual, soulful being. But what I am asking that you please remember is that the body, mind, and emotions, they create like their own head container. And then the 4th and the 5th layer, that's the intuition, the boundary setting, the purple one, and the soul, the who you really are, the spirit, the essence of who you are. Those 2 last layers, they create a whole other part of you. So there's 5 layers of yourself, and there are 2 parts. What I'm calling here in this talk, the head and the heart. And to just make it super simple, I'm going to stop the share, and you get to write in your notes if you want what head and heart look like. Here we go. Head is doing. I have to get to this to-do list. I need to do this. I'm going to make decisions based on what makes sense. That's going with the logic. That is everything that's part of the head energy would be identifying with the roles that you play. I am a mom. I am a business owner. I am a sister. The roles that you play could be your identity. And I'm not saying these are wrong. I'm saying this is part of being human. And when we are in the first part of ourself, the first three layers, when we are in the head, it goes with doing, with the go, go, go. It goes with logic. It goes with making what makes sense. It goes with identifying with the surface layer of who we really are. Again, nothing wrong with that. When we are in the head, we also will respond in conversations with a reaction. And we might lead from emotions. We might use the emotions as a way to speak. And when we are in the head, we might also be very close to doing pros and cons lists and taking action and making decisions based on what other people will think of us. And we're going to have a conversation on this. Maybe you get to also add to this list. Okay. There's many more things that would quote unquote categorize the head here. And what we want to do is raise the energy frequency. So if we are doing what makes sense, it's because we're afraid that we'll miss out. We're afraid that we won't have enough. So we do what's safe. So we stay in the lower frequencies of that energy frequency scale. When we are in the heart, that's when instead of doing, we are being. Not saying that we don't do and we don't take on the tasks on our to-do list. I'm saying that we get to be first, and from a place of alignment, from a place of this feels so juicy and I'm really connecting with my passion. Let's take that action. That's so different. So from the heart, that's the being, that's the intuition, that's making decisions that uplift you instead of drain you. Then from the heart would also be gratitude. Gratitude, not just as I'm going to have my gratitude list and I'm going to write all the things I'm grateful for, which is great, by the way. And gratitude is a feeling. We get to feel gratitude first because from the feeling, we rise in the energy frequency scale. From the heart would also be an opportunity to see, hey, what other people are saying, it means nothing about me. When they are having an anger moment or when they feel triggered, I don't need to get triggered. If they feel like they want to blame or convince or prove something, I don't need to make it about me. I don't need to have the arrow straight to the heart because I see the bigger picture. I'm anchored in who I really am, which is this last two layers of the big S self. Being anchored to the soul self means identifying to your soul, to your spirit, to the essence of who you are. And when you are there, you get to make decisions from a heart place. Let's take a collective breath. Inhale. Exhale. And that is your physical body that took the breath. And breath in Sanskrit is prana. Prana means life force. It is what animates your body, and it gets to be the energy that flows through you as well. I'd love to open up. What else would you describe head and heart energy for you? Let's just start there. How else would you describe the head and heart energy for you? Perhaps we get to add to the list of head and heart, heart being allowing and trusting the process instead of like a forceful energy. Perhaps head could also be forceful energy versus heart that allows. This brings me to actually continue and add that the head, I see it as like there's many parts of the head. There's the mind that is useful. The mind is a tool that as a human, we get to use to be in this human experience and move forward in our soul aligned life. And there's the ego. And the ego is there to be in our way. The ego I forget who said that, so I'm not going to quote, but it doesn't come from me. Ego can stand for edging God out. Edging God out. Not that it has to be a religious thing here. It can be, God can be and is this positive energy source of love. And so if ego is there to be in our way, to be in the way of the soul, to prevent us from fully living in alignment, what does going through our to-do list and taking all the tasks from the head even supporting is that really supporting our mission? And can we, from a being place, then take on our to-do list? What's important to remember, I guess, because there's no rules here. You make up your own rules. What feels like is head energy for you gets to be that, and what feels like it's the heart energy gets to be that. There's nothing wrong with doing. There's nothing wrong with being. Yin and yang, they complete each other. Yin would be, the feminine, kind of flowy, kind of trusting. Ooh, even my body is liking the dance of that word. And then yang is like, let me bulldozer through this. And sometimes we need that energy. I personally will go in the yin phase when I'm in my cycle, like at the beginning of my cycle, and I'm going to want to flow through, and I'm going to be in the yang energy, which would be more in the head, more in the doing, more in the taking action, when I'm more in like the ovulation part of my cycle. Are you willing to have the head and the heart collaborate, come together in a way that has you use both of them? For example, I lived in Nepal, and when I did my second yoga teacher training there, after the second yoga teacher training, I came back it was in New Zealand. I lived in New Zealand then. So I went to New Zealand, and when I got there, I was strict with myself. I would do a 3-hour morning yoga practice, and I came to my modern life with this rigid, I need to practice yoga this way mindset. So I went at my yoga practice in this way. And what happened, you can tell my face is like, it wasn't serving me, because I was using rules from a certain way of operating, which I'd learned in my yoga teacher training, this of how you have to do it. And I brought it into the way that I was now inserting myself into a more modern lifestyle. It wasn't working. I was forcing it. So I found a way that worked for me. And that's a little bit the head energy that wanted to do it the right way, in a way, in the highway of my soul. The many bumps of the Nepali road did not fit. So like in the metaphor of, that's their way and they do it that way at the ashram, great. And in my soul aligned modern life, it doesn't fit. So I got to create a lifestyle and a morning routine and a self-care plan for myself that fit. So if I let the head rule, I would have just kept going with, this is how I have to do it. They told me I have to do it. I have to keep doing it this way. But then I'd be so unhappy. And this would be going with the head, the doing, the misalignment, the lower on the energy frequency scale. Even if it's 3 hours yoga a day, and in my mind, I thought that would bring me joy, that would bring me higher on the energy frequency scale. But actually, it was in total misalignment. So it brought me down on the scale. Anyone who's maybe recognizing just by hearing this conversation, are you tuning into a way that you might be experiencing life from a doing perspective or a head perspective, and you're just like, hey, wait a minute, I don't want to do that anymore. External circumstances sometimes happen that we we don't really have control over. Like, okay, it's raining outside. I mean, unless I take an umbrella, it's going to rain on me. I can't really control that. A Course in Miracles says, behind this problem is a miracle. Actually, they use the word problem lightly. Behind this is a miracle. And I wonder if that mantra, behind this is a miracle, behind this is a miracle, if that would be helpful to let the universe take care of bringing a solution, because you're training your whole being that there is something behind this to open up to. I wonder what it would be like to imagine that things are easy. When life hits us, that what if it gets to be easy? Like, we are 5 layers. We are all these layers. So we get to be human. We get to think it's hard, and we get to choose that it has to be easy. If you're familiar with the free meditation app Insight Timer, there are a bunch of high frequency tracks that you can listen to, like before you go to bed. And on Insight Timer, I have a bunch of meditations on there as well. So it's free. I'll share the link in the group if any of you want to, raise your vibration with some meditation. Thank you so much for being here. If you feel like you want to just dive a little bit deeper in a subtle way, the invitation I have for you is to join my Be Happy Now show crew. So the Be Happy Now show is my podcast, and there's over 60 something episodes. So it could be something to go through it and find the one that would resonate really with you. So if you go to thebehappynowshow.com, so really make sure you put the thebehappynowshow.com and click on join the Be Happy Now show crew. You'll get the first email will be about, you get to choose what episode would most resonate with you, whether it's making meditation a regular practice, why have I not reached my goals, raising your vibration. There are different options that you can choose according to where you're at. And then you'll receive the link straight to that first episode so that you could really feel supported now. So I would love to see you there. Thank you so much, beautiful women. Thank you. Gigaro Megwenkwe. Thank you for having me. And I hope that you enjoyed it, that it served you. You've been listening to the Be Happy Now show with me, Claudia-Sam. Flex your soul connection muscle and be your inner guide to fulfillment and purpose. You are worthy of being you and of connecting to what stops you from living the life you are meant to live. Access more soul connection coaching at claudiasamcoaching.com.